Hey there, thanks for making time to watch this video as we talk coaching hitting, and more specifically, coaching hitting and hitters at the youth levels. Where do we start? I think it's in defining our goals. You need to know the desired objective. We start with the desired outcome and work back. That's how we should plan anything. Okay? My goal is to help players become the complete hitter. Okay? And that has three sub goals: developing a sound swing, a swing that's going to help them now, but also one that will play as the pitching gets faster, the stuff gets dirtier. We have to be prepared for the future as well as the present. Developing a sound approach. What are we trying to achieve based on individual strengths and based on what we can do to help our team step on home plate as many times as possible? And being or becoming our own best coach, especially as we consider the mental game, especially as we consider players spend more time away from us than with us, especially in British baseball. They need to be their own best coach. And we need a system to get there. Okay? Once we've figured out our goals, then we can work backwards and figure out the building blocks. Okay? We need to develop a system and constantly work to improve it, a roadmap to get to our desired outcome. These are building blocks for the complete hitter. This is how I coach hitting, with these building blocks. Okay? You might have more, you might have less. They might be similar, they might be entirely different. What's important is that you develop a system and constantly work to improve it. Have your foundations upon which you will build hitters, help hitters develop. Okay, and we have to understand what we're teaching. So my advice would be to not go too crazy with the number of blocks. Okay? The next thing is to scale those systems. So, as an example, all of these building blocks have been introduced to the Smarter Performance Online Academy. Meanwhile, for the Online Youth Academy, we scaled down. I didn't think the hitters needed all of those building blocks. And this could be scaled down even further, depending on the readiness of the players, the experience of the players, the age of the players, the amount of time I have with the players, my own strengths and experience as a coach. Can have as few or as many building blocks as possible. Okay? And then we can scale this up or down. And as we do so, there's certain things we have to be aware of to effectively scale our systems and deliver them appropriately for each player in each age group. Things like their individual needs. Some need more or different blocks than others. The group needs. Your beliefs for the swing, for offensive philosophy, how you're going to score runs, your own style in planning, in delivery, in analysis, and of course the time and resources you have. Resources should never be a crutch to creating an elite environment, but it's certainly a consideration. How are we going to coach certain things at certain age groups, certain times of the year? Scale your systems. Now, of course, we need to execute. We've got a plan. We need to execute it. And the easiest part of development, in my opinion, is the game itself. It happens. Maybe the one thing that's scheduled for us. And then there's practice. Okay? How we use that time is so critical. What happens below the line? Trying to make sure it appears above the line. Okay? And we've got a game that's changeable, that's challenging, that's unpredictable, that's start, stop, and that's fast. We need to prepare our players for that sort of game. Too often the practices we see are uniform, they're easy, they're predictable, they're nonstop, and they're slow. And we shouldn't have any expectation that that sort of practice prepares our players for the game now, nor as they get older and things get harder. There's an important piece missing, and it's so obvious. It's game-like practice. Okay? There is a place for easier practice, more predictable practice, lots of reps, slowing things down, doing the same thing over and over again. There's a place for it, developing a sound swing. Whether it's a brand new player or a player that's struggling with something, there's a place for hammering skills and attributes, but we can't neglect game-like practice, and all it needs to look like is the game. It's not to say we play full games in practice. There are times we need to get more reps, but we have to include more game-like practice to have any expectation that our players are prepared for the games. Okay? We need to focus on process over outcome. And we need to focus on now and later. Okay? It's easy to get caught up in success now, winning now. but our players can get away with things at younger age groups that won't play at higher levels because the pitching's slower. The breaking balls are few and far between. Oftentimes they're just spinning rather than breaking, and there's telltale signs that it's coming, like slower arm speed. There's very expensive bats with huge barrels. And sure, we could enable our hitters to get away with those longer swings and a lack of adjustability, but they're not going to be ready for later, okay? We need our players to love the game now, fall in love with the game, have success now, but we can't do it at the expense of their enjoyment down the line, because we want them to play for as long as possible, whether they end up a professional on the national team or playing on Sundays and having a great time with their buddies. Okay? We have to have an eye on later as well as now. I love this phrase from Doug Lotto, one of the best hitting coaches in America, works with players at every level, has turned around some big league careers. If it won't work at the highest level, don't teach it at the lowest level. We can't let our players get away with things that won't play at the next level. Okay? So, makes it important about what we coach, okay, as well as how to coach it, what to coach. So here's some things you can take away, not necessarily to implement right away, okay? One of the worst things that happens is when we take an idea, a drill, and just throw it right in, and we're not ready for it, or our players aren't ready for it, okay? So take it away and give it a go if you like it, as you understand it. And let's start with a concept rather than a drill related to vision. In my opinion, the most important part of hitting. We could have a beautiful swing, we could have a great approach. If we're not seeing the ball, not tracking the ball, doesn't matter, okay? Great hitters' eyes get to the release point before the pitcher's hand does, rather than playing catch up the whole time, okay? Hitters need to get their eyes to the pitcher, then to the release window, then to the ball. And it's a simple concept to explain, and players will understand it, okay? Here's a couple of videos, an example for you. This is an unrefined strategy for release. That red dot from the gaze tracker is dancing around the pitcher, eventually gets to the release point, but it's late, and then the hitter's playing catch up the whole time. Okay? They'll still be able to hit if it's the same pitch at the same speed over and over again, but they're not going to be able to hit higher velo, more stuff, better stuff. Okay? We need to really refine this strategy. This hitter's eyes get to the pitcher's hat and then to the release point, and they get there, they beat the ball to release. Okay? And now we are not playing catch up. Now our eyes can predict and track ball flight. Okay? And players will understand this. The release window for most pitchers is roughly the same height as the pitcher's hat. So it's a simple horizontal transfer of the eyes. If the pitcher is a submarine pitcher, well, that doesn't make as much sense. So we'd be locked in on their belt, and then we could move across to the release window. Okay? Simple concept that we can implement right away. Timing. Our next foundational building block. Okay? And before we talk about the concept, we're going to talk about this key position, and ultimately we're concerned with the movement as a whole. How players move. Hitters, elite hitters are elite movers. But if we take still shots of elite hitters at various points through the swing, they look similar. Style is personal, technique is universal. And here's a big one, launch position. Stride foot lands. The most athletic position we can possibly be in while swinging a bat. And I think if we took away the bat, put the arms by the side, and had the hitters face us, it's just an athletic position. Great hitters stride into an athletic position, and there's one hitter hidden there behind that triangle. It's Mike Trout, okay? A great tool to measure your hitters. And a concept they will understand is striding into a triangle, striding into a balanced athletic position, okay? And as soon as that head is tilting back, tilting forward, that triangle looks a little bit different. It's not as athletic, okay? With timing, we have to get to this position early enough to let our swing unfold, okay? We have to get to this position early enough to let our swing unfold. So we have our concept ready for release. Another concept that doesn't necessarily need a drill, okay? Let's look at what ready for release actually is. And we've got two examples, two different styles. Style is personal, technique is universal. Rizzo with a leg lift, not a huge leg lift. Here's what ready for release looks like. And Rizzo here is super early to be on time. So release point, and Rizzo's actually on the way down, okay? So ready for release means starting our load early enough that we are in our loaded position, whether that's a leg lift, a compress, a tap, which we'll see from Bonds. Doesn't matter on the style. What matters is the timing of it. We are at our max load before release. Okay, now we have time to get to that launch position and let our swing unfold. We also stabilize the eyes at this critical time of release, giving us the best chance of pitch recognition. Get ready for release. And the more movement we have, the earlier we have to start. A common stimulus for hitters, especially hitters with a lot of movement, is pitcher's hands break, start lifting the leg. Okay? If you don't have the big leg kick, then you can start a little bit later, as long as we're getting ready for release. And let's look at Bonds now. Different technique. Taps. Okay, and it's more subtle. There's less movement, so he can start later. Okay, so the pitcher's hands are well past having broken. Bonds hasn't moved. But if you dial in on his front foot, there's that little tap, his loading mechanism. And he gets there in time for release. Get ready for release. Introduce this concept early in a player's development. Next, let's look at the swing. Balance, direction, rotation. 3 building blocks for developing a sound swing. I'll give you 2 of my favorite drills. If I'm only going to incorporate 2 swing drills, it's going to be these 2. The first is called super separation. We start with a narrow stance. If a player has a lot of play with his hands, if the hands are live and active when they load, then we can hold our hands lower and closer to our body to give them somewhere to go. Okay? The critical point here is the narrow base. Okay? Super separation, because from this position I'm going to have a bigger stride, more separation between my center of gravity and my hands into launch position. Okay? And there it is. Take my stride and go. Okay? And I think this is a fantastic drill. It catches so many different things. Okay? And a modification is to go slower. This is great for developing body control, which as hitters get older and face more breaking balls is critical. Well, body control is critical full stop, but especially as we start being early on breaking balls, early on any pitch, we have to slow ourselves down. So we can do super separation with the feeling of hovering our front foot. Okay, so there's 2 variations of super separation. Start with the feet narrow, exaggerating separation, and then everything's normal from launch position. Okay, next drill, Heathener Drill. The 3rd video here will really hammer home the common faults that this drill addresses. Ultimately, it's about rotation, and rotation sequentially. Rotation from the ground up, hips delivering the hands, the rotation of the hips initiating the path that our hands take to the ball, and eventually, of course, our barrel takes to the ball. Okay? And we've got 2 different versions of Heathener. And Dan Heathener is one of the best hitting coaches in the States, the head coach at Dallas Baptist University. In this first video, that bat is touching my head. And my cue here is to keep that bat on my head for as long as possible. The concept being, if I'm beginning rotation before the barrel comes up my head, then I'm rotating sequentially. Middle first, moving from the middle. Okay? Big muscles, powerful movements, delivering energy to my hands. A variation is for the bat to be rested on the shoulder. Same cue, keep that bat touching your body and as long as possible. Okay? So try it different ways, find the one that sticks. Okay? And if we look at this 3rd video, what we'll see is some common faults. We've got hands that leave the body early, creating a longer path. Bats that cast out. Hands and bats that move before rotation really gets going. So we're not swinging as powerfully as possible. And then that last rep, if I go back here, this is doing it right. There's rotation, my hands are moving in space, but that bat's still touching my side. So I'm rotating properly, generating bat speed, and then eventually I get to contact. Okay? And then if we look at it from the catcher view, seeing the similar set of faults. Hands before hips, barrel casting away from the body, long swing, weak swing, and then doing it properly. Rotation, initiating hand path. Two of my favorite drills there. Best advice for you as far as coaching, especially game-like practice. Coach to the problem. Involve targets and obstacles. Want to hit the ball farther? Put targets farther away. Want to encourage line drives, upwards line drives, and ultimately we're all going to hit the ball different launch angles depending on how hard we can hit it, how far it's going to go, but we should all be hitting upwards line drives. Put some obstacles to hit balls over. The body will organize itself to figure out, to solve the problem. I still believe as much as we should hit the ball in the air more often, we can help our team win by hitting the ball on the ground, hitting the ball to different parts of the field. Ultimately, I think hitters should be able to hit the ball at different trajectories, different directions. So we could also put those targets, those obstacles on the ground. Hit the screen. Hit it between the cones, etc. Coach to the problem. Give your players the opportunity to solve problems. A drill on the decision-making front. This is the 7-ball drill, and you'll see there's 7 balls in front of home plate. We number them 1 through 7. 1 is the inside, 7 is away. And this is a fantastic drill to develop all kinds of approach. Plus count, 2 strike, situational. Okay? In this particular video, I'm hunting 3, 4, 5, the middle of the plate. Locations that all hitters should be able to handle. And we see first 2 swings in the zone, good contact. This one, a little bit in, bad contact. I either need to improve the swing in that area or I need to learn to take those pitches. The previous rep, the last rep in the video was the take, and that's such an important thing. We don't take enough pitches in our training. We need to learn the strike zone first and then recognizing pitches out of our zone that we should take. Okay, here's something we can do. It requires a little bit of time, doesn't require big time fancy analysis software or technology. This is using Keynote. You can do this with PowerPoint. You can do this with Google Slides. Great way to analyze these sessions. Overlay the strike zone and then even overlay the zone we're looking for. So if we look at the exact same swings, tremendous feedback, meshing approach and ball flight. Pitch in the zone, good contact. Pitch in the zone, crushed. This is the borderline pitch. Improve the swing there or learn to take that pitch. And then it was a strike, but it was out of the zone. Okay, so I love the 7-ball drill, really meshing approach with ball flight and ball flight informing approach and vice versa. Okay, one of my all-time favorite drills. Let me leave you with this. What kind of solution space are you helping your players build? Are you working with the same amount of time all of the time? Giving them the same problem all of the time? So the same pitch, T in the same location. They have one solution. Or are we giving them variability in our practice? Different amounts of time, different looks, different problems to solve, just like the game is, giving them a much bigger and always growing solution space. Thanks for your time. Happy coaching.